Hey all, welcome. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know when future videos are out. And this is going to be a fun video. I thought I will just make my, instead of top 10, which everyone's doing, I'm putting a top 15 Marvel Legends for 2022 that I liked and the reason why. And this list will be using pictures that I found online instead of having to photograph everything and look it up, you know, from my collection. And so these are the figures I got and the figures that are going to be on the comic-based material. And this is it. So let's check it out. This figure at number 1, Captain America, 20th anniversary of Marvel Legends. He's on many top 10s, and, you know, I just gotta agree. It took parts from previous Captain America figures, molds, fixed up the colors, made it better, and this is, in my opinion, for the 6-inch scale, the best Captain America figure that we've ever gotten at this level. You know, being a fan of the character is definitely, you know, one of the reasons why, and there have been some really good Captain America figures. I still like the Toy Biz Face-Off cap. And there's been another cap I like, but this is the best comic representation. Even though there is just a little fault with it, with the shield not being perfect if you don't add the effects in. You know, it's like, you wonder if you get the Ultimate Captain America, could you swap that shield in with the 20th? I guess we'll see, but again, with all that said, the unmasked head was also a really good sculpt. But of course you're going to leave it, in my case, you're going to leave it with the masked head on. And, you know, the extra accessories, I mean, this is just the best Captain America. And it's going to be really tough to see if they could ever top this figure, you know, for this classic look of the character. So, you know, top spot. My second top spot is the Spider-Man, not the Amazing Fantasy 15, but the 3-pack look with the red and blue. It is the same Amazing Fantasy 15 mold, and I like that they have the indication where you could put the arm webbing from that figure onto the 3-pack one. You know, the thing is why I don't put the Amazing Fantasy 15 as the second spot, even though they could share it, because it's the same thing basically. I like the blue. I want Spider-Man in red and blue. And even though they said, you know, the Amazing Fantasy 15, he was red and black, when you print the comic books with the shading, it always presents it with a blue highlight. So it's kind of like, is it red and black, but you see blue in there for the highlights, where it, you know what I'm saying? It's just not as good as the red and blue costume. You know, that's my favorite look. So, and that's the one reason I didn't like the Amazing Fantasy 15, is I thought they should have had a red and blue variant, and now we got it. Now, of course, the chest symbol was changed. The only difference, really. But just the mold, the look, they did a incredible job on this figure. I just think the Captain America is just a little bit better, but this Spider-Man, it's one of the best that Hasbro has made. And to get it in this color, you have to get it in the 3-pack. Another figure, highly ranked, is the Walmart exclusive, the Lizard. And this is based not only in the comic books, but on the very early years, the early look of the character. You know, the Lizard on the Build-A-Figure one, I never liked that dinosaur head. That was the reason I sold it. That's not him. That's not how the character should look. And the character was never originally meant to be like some monster size beast that other artists did in the recent decades. the lizard was only supposed to be human-sized, or a little bigger. But artists in the modern times have made this character supersized, and that is not the case. So to get this classic lizard look, it's personally one of my favorites. And finally, it is the best version of the character. And if you notice something, a lot of these figures making the top 10 for me and others are usually new sculpts. It's not a lot of people's top 10 of just the same recycled base body. When Hasbro tries and gives you new sculpts, they can do an incredible job for the comic line. It is just unfortunate they use that budget to make the movie figures and give them new sculpts, instead of each comic figure just about having unique sculptings. Next one will probably be a surprise to you. It's the U.S. Agent. Why did I put him in this list? I've been a U.S. Agent fan since the early days of the character. I have those issues when he first wore the costume that he took over from the Captain, because it was originally Steve Rogers in this costume. I just think, it was such a nice costume design, they didn't want it to go to waste. And that's just my personal opinion of why they gave it to the U.S. Agent and made that character have it. I've always liked that costume design. It's a really nice look. And all previous U.S. Agent figures have never been good. There's always been something wrong. And they always got the shield wrong. This is the best U.S. Agent. Now people might say, how come his shield, the last circle, is off color? I had to go back, and if you look at the comic books, that shield being a little off color, that's accurate. And this being the best U.S. Agent that I've seen, he definitely makes my top 15. Another figure on my top 15. Thor in his modern look on the controller wave. I gotta be honest with you. I had no interest in getting this character, and I would not have bought this character if I did not want the controller Build-A-Figure. It's the modern Thor look, and it's just I'm not following the books. We already have the classic Thor action figure from a couple of years ago. That's all I need in that costume. But I got this Thor, and I gotta tell you, I was impressed. They spent the money to give it a new sculpt. From the detailing, the extras with the two ravens, the translucent blue hammer, and just the sculpting, that face looking like the comic art it's based on. The chainmail. When I got this figure, it won me over, the quality of it. And I want to keep that one in my collection because of it. There is one unfortunate thing though. In the comic books, in my opinion, the look improved. In the comics now, he wears this costume, but the arms are bare, so you can see his skin, and he's wearing his classic winged helmet. So, the chainmail on the arms, and the thing on his forehead, that's not accurate to the improved look, in my opinion. But this is actually comic based early on from how he looked in this costume. But it's just an amazing figure. This might be a little surprise for a list. It is the Iron Man modular armor with the proton cannon. Why is this one on my list when this figure has been made before? And I'll tell you why. Iron Man's supposed to be the Golden Avenger. And while I liked the red and gold color of the previous look, when you look at the comic books and having the first appearance of this armor, and like growing up with this armor in the issue 300 on, and it being in the animated look and in the video game, the correct color is supposed to be red and yellow. It is not supposed to be gold. I almost bought an extra one just to paint the gold into yellow. This is the modular armor and quality we never got in the Toy Biz days. I wanted this armor for a long time. This look. And to me, the red and gold color was not as satisfying as the proper red and yellow. But I still think it's a really nice design. And you add the proton cannon, being a fan of the Capcom video game series, that's just an incredible bonus. I remember people were making their own 3D print of the proton cannon and charging like $50 or more. So to get this Iron Man in the correct colors, plus the proton cannon, and even the unmasked Tony Stark head that looks like the 1990s cartoon, to me it's a win. And so that's why he made my top 15. Another figure that I've wanted for a long time, but they just never got it right until now, was Havok in his classic costume. I always wanted Havok in this classic look. The only two looks that he ever had that I've liked was the X Factor 1990s costume, which we got in a 2-pack, and I do like that figure, and the classic look, which we've never got that they've done it right, that I've liked it really. It's always been wrong. A couple of years ago we had a sort of like a classic costume updated. I didn't like that. This is Havok, the classic look. They finally got it right. And I like this costume for the character. So that's why he made my top 15. And this is another one that I've liked, and is Doctor Strange in his classic costume. And this was a exclusive at Walmart. I got the Toy Biz one, and like many, it's been the only classic costume, and it's been in our display, and I still like the Toy Biz one. The Toy Biz one is still top quality, especially if you put the Hasbro cape that they had from a couple of years ago, put that on with the Toy Biz. It was like an upgrade. But this Doctor Strange is just a well done, high quality figure. And it's a classic look. The head sculpt is good. The costume details. But just like Captain America, there is a little thing wrong with it. The gloves and hands and his belt sash are supposed to be orange in the comic books. They're not supposed to be yellow. So what I did was I bought an extra just in case. It's easy to boil and pop off the lower waist and take the belt out. And you could take the lower forearms out, but then you got to glue it in. Make it a little easier. I painted it orange, because it's supposed to be orange, the belt and the hands, the forearms, the glove area. It's not supposed to be yellow. And I just got to call that detail out. But with that said, I don't think we're ever going to get a Doctor Strange again in the classic costume look for a very long time. I could see them maybe putting it in part of a 2-pack or a 3-pack in the future, but it's been this long since we got this look in toy form. Probably going to be a long time until you get it again. Another one on my top 15 is, and this will be a surprise, Sleepwalker. Why did I put this character in there? And he's probably not in a lot of other people's lists. Because I had the 1990s first appearance and first issue with the character. I had the first few issues of him. I liked the idea. I thought the look was good. The face sculpt looked spot on. Even though it's a reused body, they gave it enough new parts. The arm, the way, how the color is exposed, which is comic accurate, and the tapings. You know, I thought this character had potential. He was supposed to be big, but it didn't really take off. But I did like the look. I liked the character. I'm surprised they made the choice. And, you know, part of the reason you make these lists are, you know, are you a fan of the character? It does influence you. And I didn't think we'd get a Sleepwalker figure. And so that we got the figure, good head sculpt, good look, comic accurate. So he's on my list. Another one on my top 15 list is the Symbiote Spider-Man from the Retro Wave. To me, this is the best black costume Spider-Man from either Toy Biz or Hasbro. You would think such a simple idea of just a plain body mold with a white spider symbol and the Spider-Man eyes, you think they'd get it right. And all this time that it's almost always been wrong. They've used body molds that were too thin. They had figures where the eyes were way too big. The look was wrong. So it was either the body mold they used, the head with the eyes were too big, and just figures, or they had the blue shading, which I didn't like, instead of it just being the black costume. You know, they just kept getting it wrong. And finally, with the Spider-Man symbiote on the retro card, to me it's the first time they really got it right. And there's no need to buy another one. This is the best look. It's just a shame it took this long to get it right. Another one on my top 15 is cel-shaded Cyclops Jim Lee costume. This is, in my opinion, the best of the cel-shaded line for the X-Men. It's using the Vulcan body, but it looks just right on Cyclops. It looks like it stepped out of the Jim Lee playbook. This is the best Cyclops in this costume. For me, there's only been 3 Cyclops figures that I would have wanted. And they are the classic blue and yellow costume that he wore. It's probably his most famous look. That's his classic costume, the blue and the yellow. And we got that in the 2-pack as a high quality figure. The second costume I've always wanted was the Jim Lee look. And they finally got it right with this. And the third one is just for tradition, the yellow and navy blue first issue and the first few years look when the team had the yellow and the navy blue costumes and they were all wearing similar designs. That's the third Cyclops figure. And that needs a new update. But this Jim Lee look, the best one. The second best look he's ever had for me to want to get in figure form. But the one thing I don't like is the cel shading. And I'm going to remove it later on. So, you know, it's just like those little things like Cap or US Agent. You know, you always think like, is there something a little wrong? Or like Thor. But for this cel shading, to me it's got to go. I've got to try to remove that. But still, one of the best figures. On his top 15, I have to put Baron Zemo. Why him? I've wanted this Baron Zemo in this costume look for a long time. Toy Biz never made it. We had a Baron Zemo in his modern costume, which I never liked. I said, why can't we get the classic look? And they finally made it. From the head sculpt, the costume details. I really like this Baron Zemo. They got all the details right for the figure, man. And high quality. But unfortunately, it's a store exclusive. You know, it's kind of funny in this top 15. Quite a few of them are store exclusives. At the bottom of the list, I'm putting Spider-Man Noire, which is that movie animated look. I just thought, when I got the Spider-Man Noire, I wasn't expecting much from it. But it's just a fun figure. I really like the hat, that head sculpt with the hat, how the coat is open. And even though it's an animated look, to me it's designed just enough that it could fit in my comic display without any trouble at all. And so I like this. It's just a simple but a nice costume design. And I think it's the first time they really got the figure right. The other version was missing the hat. The other version had a reused coat that wasn't really good. And, you know, this is a better figure. I know he's probably not going to make a lot of people's lists, but I thought it deserved mention. And finally, last figure on my list, and it's probably not in a lot of other lists, is Elektra in the white costume from the Daredevil 3-pack. Why did I put this figure on my list? You know, I liked the white costume look for Elektra. It is comic book based, and to me it is Elektra redeemed. After all she'd been through and the way the Frank Miller story ended up in that original run, it was like the character got cleansed and it was a redeemed woman, storyline wise. And I thought this look is an interpretation. I had the white costume from Toy Biz years ago, which I don't have anymore. And so when I knew they were going to make this figure, I was like, you know, this is the character I really want. You know, I want this white costume look in my display because I remember those comic issues. And Elektra has not had too many comic costumes, really, especially ones that mattered. And so this look, it's one of the few that matters to me. I thought it was well done. And for number 15 on this list, I'm going to use a double spot and call it the S.H.I.E.L.D. Agents. And that includes the male 2-pack that was an exclusive on their website, and also the female solo figure that could be either Maria Hill, Quake, or any other female character if you swap the head in. Why I like these S.H.I.E.L.D. agents is, first, the male sculpt, even though it's reused, I like the helmet looks, the different heads and accessories. Plus, with that basic body, you could put just about any other head sculpt on that male body to make a different agent. And the same thing goes with the female body sculpt. It's well made, and besides being those two characters, you could put the visor on it, you could put any other female head sculpt on it. The options to basically pick and choose what you want and to get more than one. So both of these figures are nicely done, they match together, and I think they're a fine addition to add to any collection. And so, you know, that's my top 15 best Marvel Legends for the year. I'm sure there's others if I'd really looked at it, but these are the ones that I saw that I liked, and that's my reasoning behind it. So, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't. Stay safe, my friends, and I will talk to you later.